The announcement of a brand new Blade reboot starring Mahershala Ali in the titular role has widely been overshadowed by the likes of the Multiverse Saga and the formation of either the Thunderbolts or the Dark Avengers, but the return of the Daywalker is widely expected to be a welcome addition to the MCU. The last live-action cinematic outing for the Vampire Hunter was in 2004's Blade Trinity, where he was portrayed by Wesley Snipes, and seeing as this project was widely disliked by critics and fans alike, it seems that a proper reboot is in order. But is it possible that the extensive lore of Blade the Vampire Hunter has already been set in motion? The most prominent mention of anything remotely related to the Daywalker in the MCU was in the recent Loki series, when Mobius recounts having taken on and arresting vampires at some point in his illustrious career. But is it possible that the explanation behind vampires has already been introduced and even used in other recent MCU projects? Stick with us, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, as we explore where the first vampire came from in the comics and how the comic origin might play into the introduction of vampires in the MCU. In the comics, the first vampire was a former sorcerer known by the name of Varney, who served with the cult of Darkholders under the command of Thulsa Doom. After being gravely injured in battle, the pre-cataclysmic Atlanteans were able to save him from near death by using the power of the book known as the Darkhold. Using this dark magic, they were able to turn him into the first vampire. From there, he attained the ability to turn others into vampires and rule over them at the dawn of the vampiric era. The Darkhold has already been introduced into the MCU and is largely regarded as one of the most dangerous mystical artifacts in the universe, with Agatha Harkness using the book in Westview against Wanda Maximoff. After the Westview incident, Wanda came into possession of the Darkhold, and it was last seen with her as she studied the true potential of her powers and the lineage of the story of the Scarlet Witch. She was last seen in the closing minutes of WandaVision's finale, using it in a cabin in Sokovia, living in relative isolation and using her powers as well as the knowledge of the Darkhold to hone her abilities. Wanda seems to have already mastered the art of astral projection, and it seems she is learning a myriad of different abilities and spells from the Book of Sin. It is unclear when Agatha Harkness came into possession of the Darkhold before bringing it to Westview, and with the canon status of Agents of the S.H.I.E.L.D. in question, its journey has yet to be accurately pinned down. But is it possible that the Darkhold was responsible for the first vampires similar to how it was in the comics? The Darkhold is a collection of information that reveals the secrets of the darkest magic and sorcery known in the MCU, with an entire chapter devoted to the fabled Scarlet Witch. And while this seems to be the most significant trait of the Darkhold, there are still countless chapters of untold horrors that could be responsible for any number of dark arts cast throughout history. The book contains a wide index of spells, formulas, and machinations to utilize some of the darkest energies from dimensions known and unknown. So is it possible that some of this elusive information was responsible for the creation of vampires in the MCU? After all, we know that the Salem witch trials had some truth behind them in the Marvel Universe. Why should the various stories and legends of vampires be any different? The Darkhold, much like the creatures and spells that it produces, is shrouded in secrecy. One popular fan theory circulating around the internet proposes that the reason why the vampires could have existed in the MCU up until this point, but have not ever been seen before, lies in a popular one-shot comic recently released by Marvel. One of the most widely feared vampires in the Marvel comics is none other than Dracula, who is no mere legend in the Marvel universe, but is in fact real. He is one of the most feared vampiric leaders, and the recent one-shot, The Death of Dracula, could serve as inspiration for Blade's upcoming arc, as well as an explanation for where vampires have been this whole time. Dracula was a firm believer of vampires living in the shadows, away from humanity, and letting them continue to believe that they were merely legends. But as the human population expanded, and they claimed more and more vampiric land and territory, the son of Dracula, Zaris, staged an uprising against his father in order to allow the vampires to come out of hiding and wage war on humanity. This could set up a principal antagonist for this new Blade reboot, as well as explain why nobody has heard of or seen vampires up until this point in the MCU. And it's very possible that the journey of the Darkhold is a vital thread that ties the modern MCU to this new side that is about to be revealed. If the Darkhold is a sacred vampiric artifact responsible for creating the first vampire, it could very well be the connective tissue to bridge WandaVision, Doctor Strange, and the world of sorcery to the world of vampires and the Daywalker known as Blade. This could allow Blade to come into contact with Doctor Strange and be introduced into the wider MCU as a whole, as Doctor Strange in this scenario would have a connection to vampires in some way. The Eldritch magic that he utilizes could be the same magic that is responsible for the creation of vampires, giving the world of vampires a reasonable origin that has a basis in the previously established MCU as we know it. This way, it doesn't seem like vampires are coming out of nowhere, but they are actually already closely tied to sorcery and the Darkhold, facets of the MCU that we've already become widely familiar with. It would also allow Blade an easy introduction to the rest of the MCU's heroes, via Doctor Strange or Wanda Maximoff. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this theory? Do you think the Darkhold could have played a part in the creation of vampires, much like how it did in the comics? And if so, how do you think the Darkhold will play into the future of the MCU? And are you excited for this new Blade reboot? I would love to hear all of your thoughts and theories on this in the comments down below. And do you think that the Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, will ever come into contact with Blade, or perhaps the Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange? And do you think that they will continue the story with Dracula? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. If you enjoyed the content and could leave a like button, that would really help me out. Hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.